Welcome back to the Render Bar. I'm Steve Jacks, and alongside me we have Erica Robbins.
Hello.
And Richard Sanchez.
Hello.
Today is October 19th, and let's get into it. What do we got going on today? I wrote that part. I had that part written down, but
well, it's late October.
Yep.
Getting to Halloween.
Halloween, yes, that's right.
Ew.
Spooky, right? I know we don't have our sound effects right now to do the thunder crash and the spooky. So Richard, just keep doing that little laugh intermittently throughout all of this today would be fantastic.
I've lived up to my dream of being a sound effects box.
Exactly. So I thought today would be fun to talk about some stories, some stories of the cutting room where things didn't go quite the way you planned it to go. Some spooky tales of cutting room terror. You guys have anything?
Ooh, I got a pretty good one actually.
Yeah.
Fairly early on in my career, one of those terrifying moments where you're just like, I've worked this far up into my career, and my career is just about to end. I was working at a company that did a lot of behind the scenes projects and music videos, and we had the hard drive on top of the Mac Pro that I was working on. Now, I assumed this drive had backups and was on the server, like you do, but sometimes you don't. And that's what happened in this case. Little did I know. So we were working, and it was one of those situations where it was one of those projects that they did a lot with a little. So they did great products with very little resources, and we all pulled our weight. And I was working in a situation where I had my chair hanging from the back of, my desk was hanging from the back of my desk. My jacket was hanging from the back of my chair. And somebody came up from behind me to ask me a question, and I turned, and the jacket swung, the sleeve caught the corner of this Mac Pro perfectly and latched it and tipped it over. Oh. And on top of it, this G drive went... So the computer turns off for a second and kind of does like one of those Terminator T-800 like readout of code. And so we turn it back up, we turn the computer on and go, computer's alive. Okay. And much like Harrison Ford in Temple of Doom, when he's hitting the button on the plane looking for fuel, I plug in the hard drive and power, and it makes this sound. It goes,
oh no.
Oh.
Uh-oh.
And anyone who's heard that sound knows that that's not a good sound. So the hard drive is dead.
Yeah.
And we all know, like, we ask the same question, even though we know the answer is no. Do you think maybe if we plug it in another computer, maybe? And we all know the answer. It's dead. It's gone. So the first thing my very level-headed post supervisor does is he gets on the phone with the client, and he says, "So the drive you gave us, it stopped working. It sometimes happens. Very pragmatic, very political. Drives do die, after all." And he says, "So can you send us another copy? Send us the backup, and we'll just duplicate it." And they said, "Well, that was the drive." And he says, "No, but we send us the backup." Well, that was the drive. So we all have mild heart attacks. I'm probably going to live about 2 years less because of this event. And by the magical stroke of luck, one of our other assistant editors had copied something because she needed it. And we told her, unplug it, put it on a pillow, and bring it down here. And we immediately back it up. But it is one of those moments where your career flashes before your eyes, and you just say, who's going to trust me ever again? I no longer put jackets on the back of my chair.
Is that the takeaway?
And among putting backups on the server every time, every time.
Oh my God! And there was no backup of this drive.
There was fortunately this one backup that this assistant editor hadn't told us at the time that she had made because she needed to do something. And
Ooh.
so she just happened to have backed it up the night before because she had something, because I was doing mostly motion graphics and she was doing mostly editorial, and she knew that because prior to this we had been like, I need the drive, can I get it back,
Mm-hmm.
and it was
Thank God.
yeah,
Gosh,
backup,
that's
backup,
lucky
backup.
though. Yeah.
I mean, that's why
Yeah,
we
oh
do
yeah,
that's why we do backups.
yeah,
Yep.
yes.
Backup after backup after backup, because you never know. Man.
I mean, they say if it isn't backed up in 3 places, it's not backed up, and I mean, it seems excessive until it's not.
Right. What do you call what would you give your story spooky title? What would you give it?
That
What
would
would you call
be
it?
the tale of the dead drive. You do a pretty good that
Horrifying.
that
Thank
would be
you.
pretty good at the end of Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Yes. He's just a thriller. That part? No, maybe not the falsetto, but
And this is why I
it's
don't
my
dance.
best Vincent Price. Vincent Price is fantastic. Just hearing, I
You
was
ha-
listening to Thriller, and that voice came in. I'm like, it's just incredible. Anyway, it's spooky
You have
to
my
me.
Vincent Price seal of approval.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Erica, what spooky tale do you have for us today?
Well, in comparison, I don't think that my tale is quite as spooky, but a little spooky.
Judges
still, maybe.
will decide. The viewers will decide
I'm
if
scared
yours is
already.
spooky or not.
I have goosebumps.
I'll start and set the scene. It was a dark and stormy night, a Friday night to be precise. It was getting close to the end of the workday, and my producer came in to ask me if I could work the next day.
Dun dun dun.
A Saturday, which is always a fun thing to be asked within hours of finishing your work week. That's not the whole story.
That's the story, right? Sorry, I had to interject there. Yeah, go ahead.
So I didn't have any obligations that weekend, and I thought, well, I'll take the Saturday pay. So I agreed to go in, but I asked what I'd be expected to do, and I was told, oh, we might be getting some visual effects in. This was a show where, for some reason, they never knew when we were going to be getting visual effects in, so it was always just kind of, well, wait and see if we get anything. So they wanted me to come in on Saturday just in case we got anything. And I came in the next day, but it sounded like it wasn't going to be a crazy day of too much work. Came in the next day, had I don't know, I want to say 3 VFX shots to cut in. So did all that, did a couple other things. When I arrived, I was the only person there, so I just did a couple other things that I otherwise would have done on Monday. And about an hour in, my producer showed up, and I told her, oh, here's what we got. Here's what I've done. She was like, cool, yeah, I don't think we're going to get anything else today. And then was like, but since you're here, the dreaded words everyone loves to hear on an easy Saturday, and we're paying you, why don't you work on all this other stuff? So ended up being a full work day of just basically kind of doing a lot of busy work that I could have done during the week. And I watched a beautiful Saturday pass by out the tiny window of my office. So not too scary. Happens to all of us, I'm sure, on occasion. But
I'm just imagining that your body was wilting away at the end of the Saturday when the sun is setting. So instead of the vampires' bodies evaporating when the sun rises, the sun sets on a Saturday and you just wither away.
You're like those Disneyland portraits in the haunted
yes.
house that go from.
Exactly. Yeah.
I did a visual gag on a podcast.
Yeah, you got Richard, please just describe the face you just made.
It goes from happy sunlight do 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 to dun dun dun.
I love how you describe the emotions on your face through sounds.
It was a musical cue. We don't have the rights to clear that, but my mouth beatbox version is you can have those publishing rights.
Oh, okay.
It's a cover, yeah.
Well, I actually had a little bit of a scare today, right before we started rolling. I had my cat had a little emergency, and there was apparently we thought he ripped a nail out of his little paw. We saw this blood, and suddenly we saw blood on our bed sheet, and we're like, we've been here before. We had a past experience with some blood. And turned out we were actually home this time to take care of him, and find out we saw there's blood right on his little paw, and we had to take him out to the vet. And luckily, even though they had all their appointments set, they didn't really have a vet there on hand, but they had their little, I guess, I don't know, what do you call a vet's like assistants? They're not nurses, but a vet nurse.
Like I think a vet tech.
Vet tech.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
thought.
it's a
Yeah,
technician.
vet tech was kind enough to take Louis in and take a look at him, just like wash out his paw and everything. And turns out he had a little skin tag or something between his toes that he was nipping at or giving him some trouble. And so we had to wash him up, take him home, get him all set. Now we had to clean up some bloody spots in the corner of the bedroom where he looks out his window and stalks the creepy. No, he doesn't stalk. He's cute. But anyway, so that happened, and that happened right before I come on. So like it already was kind of fitting for this. But so my story is a little more involved, and I'll help try not to drone on with this one too long because I wrote a little bit here, but I think it'll go by quick. I call this one the curse of almost being replaced.
Ooh, scary.
Yeah. So I'll say that the story is the same, but the names have been changed to protect the
The innocent.
the innocent. Yes, exactly. No, because everybody on this project was really nice. Just this one instance I had was a little peculiar and set me off. You know, sometimes everything is kind of going right, but then wait a minute. I thought not often are you on a job where suddenly you feel like heart's beating and heart's racing about some other situation that isn't even about necessarily like your role in the cutting room, like your job. It wasn't even really affecting based off the work that I was doing, you know? So I was hired on this, I'll call it fake movie, as a second AE, and it was about January. It was in the Big Apple. And my first was really happy to have me on board since I just finished another big movie, and I already wrapped up on a series as visual effects editor. So they're really happy to have me on, helping out. And the editor and the assistant had worked together for many years. They were like this tight team, and whatever, you know, the editor needed, the first would always like hop in and take care of, working late, working early, through lunch, all the things, probably working Saturdays, all of that stuff. And you know, every day I'd be helping out, doing comps for the editor and kind of all these little other duties as second AE as usual, making backups, many backups, Richard. And you know, one time, there was a time in the springtime, my grandmother passed away, and I had to quickly leave town, and everybody was cool, showing me kindness to help me deal with those affairs. And I brought in a friend to help take care of the work when I was gone. And then, so months passed and the summer drew near. There was chatter of a screening being put up on the calendar, and about 2 months later, say August. We didn't know anything about when the screening would happen. There was nothing on the calendar. So how can you plan for anything when you have nothing to plan for? So I knew that my wife's birthday was approaching in August. So we decided that, you know, I'm just going to put in like to take a week off work, which I know usually, you know, in our industry, you just don't take days off because you just work. But I'm also in the place where I want to be able to take time off if it's important to me and find people to cover, and you should be able to do what you need to do. So I wanted to be straight with my editor and wrote a little email the night before, and then try to be just official with it, not so nonchalant, you know, just try to be right by do right by my coworkers. And so I like on a Monday night sent this email, and then I come in Tuesday morning, and like it must have been a rainy day. I'm soaking wet head to toe. I walk in, I go to my office. And usually I get to my office and there's no one in the room. I open the door, start up my system, whatever. But the first AE was sitting in my room. I'm like, well, that's peculiar. And so that happens, and they say just some small banter, and says, oh yeah, by the way, the editor wants to see you. Okay, so let me put down my stuff, and I get settled and walk down the hall, and suddenly I'm like, well, this obviously has to do with the email I just sent. But if it's not a big deal, why would that happen? So I walk down to their room, and I walk in, and they're both sitting in the editor's room. And I thought, this is really strange. This feels like a sit down. This feels like I'm in trouble. And I was immediately told that, yeah, you know, I've never had anybody request time off. I'm like, okay. And, you know, like, okay. And so that really kind of started putting me off guard. And that like nervousness sets in, and I'm like, well, I didn't do anything. Is this wrong? Should I not have done this? But I'm trying to do right by everyone by requesting time. And turns out that, you know, they say, well, if you go, we won't have anybody to sit sorry, if you go, we won't have anybody in your place. I'm like, well, I would find somebody of 2 months notice. I'll find somebody to hop in. Yeah, but the last time it happened, we were able to get by, but the first had to do a lot of work. And I'm like, well, okay. So then I say, well, we'll make sure that everything's smooth. And they say, well, if you decide to take this trip, we're going to have to let you go. I said, well, wait a minute. In the same breath, they also said, you're also irreplaceable. Before that, they said, oh, you're irreplaceable. We need you too much. We can't have you go. And then they said, but if you do leave, you'll be replaced. And I'm like, what in the world is happening? So confused. So confused. I'm like, you need me, but if I leave, I'll be easily replaced. And so I'm like, okay, this isn't like an ultimatum to like leave the job. I'm just asking for some time off in the future. We don't know when the screening is happening, so how can we know until we know? So you might as well just plan for whatever. And then so that happens, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll think about it, and we'll talk again, I guess. I think it's kind of how it ended. So I left and I sat in my room, just like, ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. My heart is like kind of like just yeah, I'm off. Yeah, exactly. And I was just kind of like nervous, right? I'm like, this is now awkward. I think that's what I meant earlier about like when something in the offices happens now, this is awkward.
Yeah.
And usually things just kind of, you just show up, do your work and leave, But
it's like when you're on set, when you're on set and they say go to channel 2 and everyone goes to channel 2 because the good stuff's about to happen.
Yeah. So I'm feeling like I'm nervous, like this is kind of strange. I don't know what to do. Like, now do I even want to keep working here? Because I thought everybody was cool, but then this situation happens. I'm like, this doesn't feel so cool. Because if I'm easily replaceable, but yet also needed, it's kind of backwards. So I had to really think about it. And in the meantime, in about those 2 months time, I kind of had to, all right, I'm just going to get back to work, not mention it again. Be like, I'm here to do the work. And about 2 months go by, and my wife's birthday was coming up in August. And around the same time, I got offered to work on another show as visual effects editor. And so I say, you know what? I think it might be a good opportunity at the right time. So I decided to say yes and take this other job. And I was then again dreading walking into my editor's bay and talking to him and my assistant, the first assistant, and saying, I really appreciate you bringing me on board, and I value this time that I've had with you. When you want to quit a job, like how many times have you guys had to quit a job, or had to but chose to, right? And so I hadn't really been in that situation before, I don't think. So I had to walk in. I had like a script prepared. I was going over in my brain, and and I walk in and I say, I need to speak to you both. I'm like, right? And then we sit down and we talk, and I say, thank you, but I think I'm better suited in visual effects, and I've done it a couple times before, and I want to do it again. And to my shock and dismay, they were like, great, fantastic, good for you. Oh, I'll be sad to see you go, but you know what? You're going to do great over there. So, wow. Oh, well, you got 2 weeks notice? Oh, thanks so much. That'd be great. I'm sure we'll find somebody. And so I go from this, like, wait, I thought I was irreplaceable, but also replaceable, and I can't look for time off. But then once I say I'm going to quit, you're fine with it. It's like, what in the world? So that's like my spooky story of like actually trying to find do like as nice as you can to ask for time off, but then being told, and if you take it, we'll fire you, to quitting and saying, great, congratulations on the new job.
And it's amazing the barriers that go up in your own head. And I don't necessarily mean you, but me myself in those situations too. Every step you take towards their cutting room, and it's it's just like,
yeah, when you working with some people that don't have that aren't as easily approachable. And that was the situation in this case on Fake Movie. Yeah.
Now, out of curiosity, does anyone have a tale of paranormal in the cutting room?
I gotta tell critters, but not paranormal.
Oh, I do want to hear the tale of critters. I have one that I'm hesitant to pull out of the closet, but I did have a situation once. I was working in one of these buildings that you could tell it didn't used to be a post facility. It was an old office building that probably hadn't been updated much since the 30s. And the building standards were awful. There were probably body parts in the walls and stuff just from shoddy construction and no safety standards back then. And um and and it was also in a very rough part of Hollywood, the kind of place where even though the parking lot was only a few doors down from the building, I was a little nervous when I had to work late nights. And I remember we were working on a pilot, and I wasn't even working that late, maybe 9 o'clock, but everyone had gone for the day, including the other shows that had rented rooms downstairs. So I was the only person in the building, had a turnover, not the biggest deal, but I was working later than anyone. And about 9 o'clock, I'm almost done with my work, and I hear footsteps. And it's not like the building settling. Hearing kind of footsteps, and they're coming up and down the stairwell that's kind of around the corner from where I'm working, because we had this bullpen area and about three or four cutting rooms, and I was in one of them, and I'm hearing this going back and forth. And I was like, well, that's weird. I just go, hey, is someone here? No one says anything. And it was one of those, it was a small building, so they didn't even really have like sophisticated security, no key cards. It was just, they're like, when you leave, the doors will lock behind you, so just leave for the day, and that's cool. And the next morning, I come in, and there's the IT guy who just facilitates the network for all the shows there. And I said, hey, I heard sounded like footsteps, but no one said anything. Was there like night staff? Because I don't usually see the cleaning crew. I thought they come in much later. And he says, sort of casually, oh, you heard him? And I was like, I heard him. And and he notices that I took particular notice, and then he gives me this look like he just said something he wasn't supposed to say, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, I got to go work on something." And but wait, I have about 5,000 more questions for you. And that was all I ever heard. And any time I worked late at this building, I was just like, "Is he gonna come back?" Never did, but that was like one of the few times where I was like, can I finish these turnovers in the morning, please?
In the
Do you
daytime.
think it was another a past assistant editor who didn't finish their turnovers?
It might have been. Or
Died trying to finish the turnovers.
maybe they exported a cut that had a media offline in it,
Yeah,
and
that was it.
that was it.
Man.
You actually reminded me. This is nowhere near as spooky as that. But I did work in an office once that had this. Speaking of older buildings, that had this strange room that was like almost like a small closet space, but when you opened it, you could look down and see it was basically like an open shaft down the building, which was pretty spooky too. But I never heard any ghosts in there.
But just looking down, like, oh,
Yeah.
Well, and there was enough space in there that you could like. I think there was like a little bit of you could walk in.
It was like big enough for a
you could
body.
have fallen.
yeah.
It was. Yeah, it was.
I mean,
didn't
anytime you
walk
have to
in there.
work in an office where you're alone for a period of time. I've had
Yeah.
times where I was, I worked on a show where our whole team left. It was back in Pittsburgh. Everybody was there for the shoot, and then post, the editor and the assistant left back to LA, and then I'm there for another month doing script sync because they didn't want to bring me to LA. I was working in Pittsburgh as a local, and I'm there alone. The production office moves out. Everybody moves out. It was just daytime work, but still, you'd wander around and there'd be no one around. Just kind of strange. But my critter story does feature me working alone at night. I was working as a nighttime AE on a reality, some really terrible reality show, and I'm working late, and I was there for a few weeks. I was only there for a couple weeks when I started hearing something in the hallways late at night. And so this one particular evening, I'm working and quiet. Everyone's left. It's probably 2:30 in the morning, and most of they'll just turn off most of the lights in the hall on the floor, except for kind of where you're working. And I'm hearing this like, like a scurrying, right? I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, what the hell is this? What is this? And I'm like, and I'm not okay. Put your music back on or something. Get back to work, and then you hear it again. And so I started like wandering around the office floor. This floor was set up with like cubicle style editing bays, right? Because your producers had like had computers, and everybody had their own little workstation. Then there's hallways with different offices, and I kind of wander around down this one empty hallway, nothing. And I hear it again. I make a left, and I go down here to my right, and I see a light on in this room, and I'm like, I thought I'm alone. No one else is here. And I creep in, and there's this tiny little girl working on the Avid, doing a nighttime assistant editing work, just like me. I mean, she was tiny. She was a small girl, and she was her name was Valerie, and we became friends working nighttime shift. But up till then, I thought I was the only one working in this office building, and I'm hearing noises, and it was just her like crinkling her chips of her bag, eating snacks. And I'm like, I thought there was a friggin' mouse in this, or some kind of critter in this office. And turns out it was just another nighttime AE that no one told me about. And you think you're alone, but you're not. Yeah. And then we became friends, and the nighttime shift wasn't so bad.
Like, the only thing worse than a critter, a human.
Yeah, another assistant editor. Yeah. But I and not to keep rambling with stories, but I do have one that's very quick about the time that I call this the tale of the deleted project.
Ooh.
Because this is Avid related. So there was one time on a show where, when I do searches, when you're in the Avid, you can go up to the search function on like file edit, the top row of drop down menus. On the far right, there's a little like a search icon. You can click in there and type in, whatever you're looking for, and it shows you in the navigation where it lives. So I'm in there doing the things like I usually do. And when I am in any program, I typically do Command A to select my text, and then delete. Command A, delete. Command A, delete. If I'm typing. So I do Command A. I'm typing, searching, finding things, going in, searching, finding things, and then I do Command A, delete. Well, guess what Command A does in Avid in the search toolbar of the entire program? Command A selects not the text in that toolbar, it selects all of the bins in your entire project.
Because that's what you want to do.
Why? Mm-hmm. That's a really great question, Rich. I don't know why. It just suddenly decides, let's gonna go to the project bin and assume that when you hit Command A in the toolbar, it goes over here. And so it selected all my bins, and I hit delete like I always do. Command A, delete. Everything's gone. Freak out, freeze, sweat, dripping. I'm like that scene in Airplane when he's flying the plane, but the sweat is just like pouring everywhere down his face. That's me. I'm in my office, like, okay, there's a reasonable explanation for this. Like, we can fix this, right? And so, no, knowing that all your bins just go to the trash. Okay, I just go to the trash, bottom trash. Okay, everything's there. We just got to put it back. And because I know not to just try to fix it myself without saying anything, because clearly we're in a shared project right now.
Yeah.
Everyone else on the floor, I got like, 2 assistants, an editor, visual effects editors, like there's a bunch of us. So I just go to my first, I'm like, all right, this is what happened. It'd be front. This would be just, hey, Avid has this weird hiccup. You do this and this happens. Let's fix it. And she was like freaked out as well, but we calmly, got through it, and it wasn't a big deal because we were able to find all the bins, bring it all back, reorganize everything. And luckily, if you're working in a bin, that bin can't get deleted because someone else has ownership and lock privileges. So that was a good thing. But that was a big head scratcher and nail biter at the same time.
Yeah, I'm surprised there was no like, do you confirm that you actually want to delete all the pins in your project or something?
You'd think there would be.
I mean, if it just did it.
Avid has when you want to close a bin, it says, "Are you sure you want to close the bin?" I'm like,
Exactly.
I want to close the bin. But if you said, do you want to delete all the bins in your project, all of them?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
I'm sure they
I'm sure
intended
no
to
one
do.
would do that without
I
me.
mean, it's one of those situations. It's like when Egon tells Peter Venkman, if you cross the streams, that would be bad. Like the Avid should say, do you want to delete the bins because that would be bad.
Right?
Yeah, maybe like a
Yeah,
few. Like,
that's
are you
You
sure? Are
think?
you really sure?
Are you really sure?
Are you
Mhm.
absolutely
Yeah.
positive you want to
So
do this?
that happened, and that was scary. But what
Yeah.
big lesson out of that is that, hey, you can delete the project and put it all back together and still continue being employed. That's an example of like a fixable mistake versus a
That almost sounds like a mafia
something else.
tactic. Like, it'd be really bad if your whole project went away. You
Yeah,
pay your dues.
it'd be really bad if this hard drive was never backed up, huh?
There's people that want to take advantage of you if you pay your fee.
It'd be really bad if I had you at work on a Saturday.
To your story, Erica, have you ever had because this has happened to me before where I've had one of those, they brought me in on a Saturday and it's a slow day, really slow day, and you go, I don't think they needed me today. And for whatever reason, there was someone else filling in that was supposed to be doling out tasks, and they did, but they did it in a different way. So it comes to be like 4 p.m. My day's almost done. And I go, oh, no, there was actually a ton of shots, but someone did it a little bit differently. And you go, it wasn't a slow day at all. And I'm getting started at 4 p.m.
Oh gosh, no, I don't think I've had that experience. I mean, I've definitely had days where it's been slow until the end of the day and everything picks up, but not because
That's
of something like that.
that's the scariest day when it's slow all day, and then like at
Yeah.
6 o'clock, you start to make plans for the night. You're like, oh, I can see my friends early. I can dip out
Yeah.
early, and then like 5:45.
Yeah.
We
Well, and just
we
like
got this
mentally,
request.
you're kind of like checked out by then, and then all of a sudden you got to turn your brain back on and actually
And
Yeah.
do work.
and it tends to be like someone will come in really casually under the full assumption
yeah.
that you've seen this all, like, hey Steve, so you got those 270 shots that we got like at 9 a.m. You're like, no, I didn't. Tell me about these shots, are they good?
Right? So do you guys, all the spooky stories, do you have any like to offset the scary? Do you have any like great stories, fun stories to share before we sign off?
I have kind of a fun one. I guess it's not actually like from like being at work because it happened during a hiatus, but I think we've talked on here before about how I worked on the last 3 seasons of Game of Thrones, and
Mhm.
I knew like a bunch of the people I worked with. They worked over there in Belfast and then came back here to do post. So when I was on hiatus, they were all over there getting ready for the next season. So I decided, I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever gone and like visited the set of anything that you've worked on. So I was like, well, I want to go check out the set. That seems like the kind of thing that, you just like can't miss that opportunity, right? Like you're working on one of
Of
these
course.
huge shows that has like a whole infrastructure like that. So yeah, I took a little vacation, went over there, got a photo in the Iron Throne, which was pretty awesome. And yeah, it was really cool just to see they were like building. There were like some of the set, obviously like the throne room and stuff was already there, but there was a lot of like turnover going on. So I got to see like them kind of starting to build the sets. This was for season 7 because I went between season 6 and 7. So it was just really cool, and just seeing like, because they had like a huge armory with all the different weapons and all the costume stuff. Like it was a whole production, obviously. But yeah, it was really fun. So yeah, I don't know if I would just say to anyone, if you ever have the opportunity to go check out the set of something that you're working on, even I know we're in post, so we don't really get to do that, but it's very, very cool.
Like
And
my
Mhm.
hands would be
coworkers
shaking.
gave me a little tour. Oh yeah. I mean, it was fun.
Especially when it's that fantastical world.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantasy world,
Well, just to
fantasy
see like
show.
there's so many little details that go into every little thing. Like it's just so
I was
cool.
once on the set of Orange is the New Black because I worked on a show that was shooting at the same studio, Kaufman Astoria Studios out in New York. And next door to us was Orange is the New Black set. And I remember being able to walk through there and being like, this concrete feels like wood, because it's all fake. Everything looks like,
Yeah.
to your eye, it looks I'm in prison. But especially when it's not lit correctly, they weren't shooting, so the lights weren't on, right? And but the concrete wall, the concrete bar, like the steel bars, look real. But then you touch it, it's like, oh, it's wood. It's fake. Clearly, it's fake. We know that. But your mind gets tricked to believe that it's real, even when you're there.
Well, my story doesn't involve going on set, but I was working on a film once, and in the editor's room, the director had all sorts of props, toys and stuff. And one of those was like a 3 foot, the girl from The Exorcist. It looked like a person, and I was so like, wow, that's really cool. And I walked closer and closer, and little did I know that it was animated. So I get closer, and the head starts spinning. I jump about 40 feet. And apparently they had this, and this was they just loved pulling pranks on people, and they added me to that illustrious list of people who they got. And I think my blood rate, my heart rate about tripled. It was like, once the color came back to my face, it was very funny.
Oh, that's awesome. That would be frightening.
It was, but then like once you're in on the joke, you're like, who's gonna walk up to it,
Yeah, right. My fun story is I worked on a big feature once where we had a lot of visual effects coming in every day. They had to do obviously our visual effects reviews, right? But our director really didn't want to sit through another visual effects review because they were pretty long at the time, and so he purposefully had his assistant get schedule manicures and pedicures for the entire post-production team right at the same time of the visual effects review, so that we didn't have to have the review, but yet the entire crew got to go down the nearest mani-pedi spot and get manicures and pedicures. Guys and girls alike, everybody did it. And we were sent down in groups, in like two different group A and group B, and we had to go down and get our get our nails done right, and we didn't have to sit through a meeting. And so that was like a randomly crazy fun thing that happened on a show once.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I wish I could get on the show like that.
We all looked really nice after that.
Bet.
Yeah.
I feel like I would find every excuse to go, am I going that way? Do you see something? Oh.
Oh, right.
Yeah, you like doing magic, like, oh, I'm
doing close-up magic now, guys. Rich is, for those who aren't watching, Rich is throwing his hands above his face, and so am I at the moment. Our hands are in front of our face.
Or if you saw Wayne's World.
Exactly. Well, that's been great, guys. It's been great to be able to share some of our spooky stories here on this Halloween edition episode of the Render Bar. I hope you guys come back next time to hear more about Let me redo that one. I'm sure that'll just stay in the cut. We're not going to cut that out. It's been great hearing It's been great hearing all of our spooky stories today on this Halloween edition of the Render Bar. Come back next time. Hopefully we have some more fun tales to talk about in our upcoming episodes. For now, I'm Steve Jacks.
I'm Erica Robbins.
I'm Richard Sanchez.
And this is the Render Bar.
Bye.
Bye. Well, we got through that one.
That's good.